next up, we have actually a really interesting panel based on the fact that why we're all here actually today. I mean, we're in Switzerland. It's not just because of the beautiful views and the nice chocolate. There are definitely other reasons for it, and I think we're going to be able to explore some of them right now. So without further ado, let's give it up for the next panel with Sirpa, please. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So the next 45 minutes, we're going to talk about Switzerland, one of my favorite topics. And we're trying to build the case for building with Cardano in Switzerland with this panel of experts here. And let's start with a quick introduction round.
Thank you, Sirpa. Hey guys, my name is Sothy Kol-Men. I'm co-founder of Genius Yield and Genius X. Genius Yield is a DEX with a yield optimizer on top of it, and of course, built on Cardano. And Genius X, this is an accelerator program where we help other startups essentially to grow. We provide consultancy services in marketing, smart contract review, designing the tokenomics, drafting the white paper, and also raising funds. We do this typically in various phases, starting from the seed. We also run ISPOs, we will talk about it later, and also public rounds. Jürg.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Jürg Baltensperger. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite. My educational background is I'm a Swiss lawyer and graduated in risk management as well as business administration. So we try to cover the topics from a holistic approach. In the meantime, I founded my own company, JayBee, where we started actually thanks to our first client, which was a Swiss private bank who accepted deposits from the public that derived from the crypto space back in 2017, before any kind of regulation was issued in Switzerland. We are now specialized in this field. We have a bigger team in the meantime of experts, and we're servicing about 60 financial intermediaries in the crypto space, as well as 6 fintech licenses. Half of them are in the crypto space too. I also got the chance to build up the compliance department of Sygnum, which was a great pleasure, and set up my own education at the University of Applied Science, which is called CS in Digital Compliance Officer, where we actually teach compliance officer, auditors, and consultants in this specific field. So we have a very, very strong focus on crypto and fintech in our company.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm Aliya Gupta. I'm a Senior Vice President of Business Development at Sygnum Bank. Sygnum is the world's first digital asset bank and is contributing to the growth of the crypto ecosystem in Switzerland and in the rest of the world as well. With my other hat, I am also a founding board member of Crypto Mondays Zurich, and I also run the podcast for Sygnum called The Crypto Explorer. Sygnum, being at the center of the financial ecosystem, is also able to support a lot of different players, not just with financial services, but with support along the entire value chain. And with that, we have a growth program called RISE, where we work with accelerators like Sothy's, as well as from the ones from different ecosystems, and bringing together participants to enable more structured and compliant growth.
Hey, my name is Paola. Even though that you see a long, long name, I go just for Paola Valencia, please. And I'm here, I'm the Director of Operations and Strategic Partnership for the home of Blockchain.swiss, which is basically a private-public organization. We are under the patronage of the Ministry of Finance in Switzerland, Uli Maurer. And what we do, our function, together with Switzerland Global Enterprise, where Sirpa is part of, with great partners like Sygnum, Cardano, and cantons, and we work also with academic institutions. We have the mandate of promoting around the world the Swiss blockchain and digital assets ecosystem, and we do that by organizing events, releasing publications, and building basically bridges between public and private and governments, and trying to bring out the word of the amazing things that we can build with the blockchain. And also doing the transition between traditional finance to modern finance, and I will talk that a little bit later. My background, I'm Swiss-Mexican, and I've worked for Swatch, for many other companies, lived in 4 different countries, so I'm very Swiss. I'm also Mexican, but I feel like more in a global, like a global citizen. So back to Sirpa.
Excellent, thank you, Paola. And also, you actually introduced me already. So Sirpa Tsimal, I'm with Switzerland Global Enterprise. We are an association, and we help the Swiss ecosystem to go international, and also international companies that are interested in evaluating Switzerland to do so. My first question goes to you, Paola. We heard now a little bit about Home of Blockchain. Can you say more how it came into existence, and also for our international audience here, what's the history of Switzerland as a crypto nation or blockchain nation? How did the Crypto Valley start in a little small town of Switzerland, Zug?
I think, I will be the storyteller this time, and we have a couple of stories here. Switzerland, you probably know, 100 years ago, Switzerland was not the super, this advanced country, and we don't have the big natural resources, but Switzerland discovered that basically with the influence of migration and innovation, that has been basically the engine for the success of this little country. And being open to innovations, to listen to stories, being pragmatic with our federal system, this decentralization is basically like a DNA, a natural DNA in the country for a project like the blockchain. And basically, Seneca, one of my favorite philosophers, Greek philosophers, said that luck is what happens when preparedness meets opportunity. And Switzerland had a serendipity moment when these nerd guys arrived to the office of Luca Müller, one of the co-founders of Sygnum Bank, legend. And they explained this project. Bitcoin was known. What was very interesting is that even in 2008, the government of Switzerland had already released a Bitcoin paper. So, early on, Switzerland noticed, okay, there's this thing coming out. Let's start looking at it. So then we have these youngs and Luca Müller with all his expertise, and they start looking at this. They work intensely for 1 year and put it into the FINMA for review, and they developed this concept of a foundation, like having a protocol with an owner, like with strict rules of the functionality it should have, and then they got the okay. And at that time, I think they never imagined what was going to come, and this was like basically the cornerstone to start the Crypto Valley. So we have on that side these that started this revolution. We had the Bitcoin.swiss that started also very early. The Bitcoin Association, they started in 2013, and in the 2014 was the Ethereum. And at the same time, in I think it was 2018, seeing that there's all this development, then there was this group of academics, government, and private institutions that they said, okay, what is this blockchain? And then they decided, together with the finance minister of economics and finance, Schneiderman and Uli Maurer, they got together and they went to Zug, to Crypto Valley. And they basically wanted to get 4 questions answered. And it was, what is the blockchain? Which at the time was not an easy question, easy question to answer or to understand. Then there was what is the functionality, what can this bring to Switzerland, and what type of things, what is the potential, and what can we do in Switzerland so that this industry also stays here. And then they released a white paper, like 100 pages, with the foundations for what was to be developed, and basically it was the start of the Swiss Blockchain Federation. And inside of the Swiss Blockchain Federation, you have different groups, work groups, even looking for the energy, for regulations, and so on. And this is, again, a public-private organization, which is the very special thing in Switzerland. It's a grassroots movement. It's not like in Singapore that they develop, and this is planned for 2025, this is what you have to do. No, in Switzerland, it came from the people up. So, and the authorities are pragmatic to open and see, okay, let's not hinder innovation, let's just try to understand what is it about, and let's work at it. And I think in the days like now, it's paying off. I mean, there are some crypto banks that maybe were jealous about this unregulated, and I think today it's paying off that, okay, it was a pain maybe to do all these requirements, but there was something about it. And then from this Swiss Blockchain Federation, there was this spin-off just to promote, and that's where the home of blockchain comes. So this is a little bit the story.
Thank you, Paola. I can tell how passionate you are about, that's the Swiss side of you, not the Mexican side who was speaking now, about the location. Thank you. So yeah, Switzerland has taken on a pioneering role, but it's not the only country. What about other countries? I'm sure there's other nations that had similar approach. What's your experience with other countries in blockchain?
Well, if I may answer this question, there are many different jurisdictions who also try to have a use case in the crypto industry, and sometimes some jurisdictions are popping up and then disappearing again, and it's a little bit difficult for us actually to assess, but Switzerland in the meantime always stayed stable on this radar. So I went for my students, I went through the ranking, which is the most crypto-friendly jurisdiction. Switzerland was never number one, but the number 1, 2, 3, or 5 constantly changed, depending on the source I double-checked on. So some say Portugal is super crypto-friendly, but then it completely disappeared again. Some said in the Baltics, in Estonia, is very good, in particular for going to for this e-money license, but we got the feedback from the market that it's now very difficult because they have issues with accounting. No accountant wanted to sign on crypto holdings because the law, and in particular the tax law, is very unclear. Then we have Dubai, of course. These free zones, I just had a conversation this week with a free zone from Dubai, and we talked about this topic, and I said, well, it's mainly driven by DeFi projects, but due to this, highly unregulated area, they've been put on the monitoring list from the Financial Action Task Force, so we see what kind of effect this will have. Same happened to Malta because of Binance, but now Binance is kind of differently structured and Malta kind of disappeared again, but obviously there are big blockchain conferences. Germany is on the rise. There's a lot of interest in Germany to build up that kind of project. So it's very difficult to say how it develops, but the good thing here is to see that Switzerland constantly and steadily developed from a global perspective.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other perspectives here?
I think I can share Jürg's view. So Switzerland has also been considered as stable, right? So as a consultant for other startups, you want to have legal and regulatory certainty. You know, you want to sell tokens, which is in its nature a risky instrument. At least you want to choose a jurisdiction that has really political and legal stability. So many startups that we advise are originally from the US. And when we spoke to them, we mentioned the advantages of Switzerland. And also at my company, when we raised funds last year, one of the investors asked us, where are you guys based? When I said Switzerland, they smiled. So one box ticked. So I think reputation matters, and this is combining all the favorable factors like low taxes, the good overall environment. These all things matters to startups, especially in Web3.
Thank you. So maybe next question back to Paola. What do you think the Swiss government is doing right about the legal framework it offers? Can you say a bit more about that?
Basically, this openness to listen. I mean, here you can come I mean, other companies from around the world, they come and maybe they want to talk with the authorities, and they will listen. They are, I mean, as it started 2008, as I said, this white paper, this document was released. I mean, they started also the regulations with anti-money laundering. They have these ICOs regulation, very, very clear definitions, and then came with new rules. They made adaptation, in particular of 10 laws. So they are adapting. It's not like inventing something new, like from zero. It's like, okay, there's this new thing. How can we adapt what we already have in order to continue and so on? And yes, they take their time, but as I said, they are looking at this. It's paying off, and okay, a little bit more speed will not be bad, but just being pragmatic, business friendly. I mean, this decentralization system. I mean, you have. I mean, I'm sure everybody has heard about Lugano trying to be the most crypto-friendly city around in the world, and I mean, this. You could say, okay, it's a big bet, but I mean, we are all learning from it, and it's very interesting, and then maybe the next ones will come, and so on. And now, what started with just Crypto Valley is basically expanding now. With Zurich is also active, we have Geneva being active, Neuchâtel, and so on. So, and I think we, like right now with the home of blockchain, that we are trying to find all these success business case stories and bring them out and show, hey, it's about the whole applications of the whole ecosystem. And Switzerland has this fantastic position that, I mean, it's a small country, but we are like a perfect mix between Silicon Valley, taking the universities we have, the higher education. It's not only the higher education, you start seeing that it's going to other schools. And you have the traditional hundreds of years of Switzerland, all this traditional finance industry, and then you're merging them together. So we have a Wall Street, Silicon Valley experimental arena in Switzerland. So I think this is something great, a great place to come with new ideas.
Thank you. I want to dive into regulatory now and fundraising, especially Jürg and Sothy. My next question goes to Jürg. So what are the main regulatory challenges for a Web3 startup that they face in building up a business, especially here in Switzerland?
So most of our clients are actually domiciled abroad. I mean, they've found their company in Switzerland, but the shareholders are 80% of the time, the shareholders are domiciled outside of the world. And we couldn't really cluster it. We don't know which jurisdiction favors Switzerland the most and which not. But it all starts, and this is our first discussion that we have with our prospects, it all starts with the business case. We had some cases. I remember a guy from China that approached us and said, he wants to build up a financial intermediary in Switzerland. We should go to this self-regulatory organization, get his membership so that he's licensed, and ask him, what is your business case? And the response was, no, it's not that way how it works. It works the other way around. You go and get me the license and tell me what I can do with it. I said, okay, that's a little bit difficult because the regulator will not understand. So first we have to shape the business case and find out what exactly do you want to do. And the second challenge is we're dealing with entrepreneurs, so they constantly have brilliant ideas and want to change their business case. And this, of course, changed the regulatory impact on the back end. But as soon as we do have the business case fixed and we're confident that it remains the way it is for a while, the process that afterwards follows, we wouldn't consider as a challenge because it's pretty much streamlined and quite pragmatic.
Thank you. Maybe let's talk a bit about token classification, so token or funding via tokens and token pre-sale, project pre-financing. What are the different token classification and then its regulatory consequences?
Is that a question for me as well?
Yeah, second question for you.
Afterwards, I'm going to be quiet. They're actually, well, we're quite in line with international standards or best practice, as I would say. We have three kind of token classification. three kind of token types, which is utility token. That's the most preferred, in particular if it comes to Cardano projects, because it's not regulated. There's no consequence from a regulatory perspective. The second one is a payment token. So you just issue a mean of payment, which followed up by anti-money laundering requirements, and requires a respective license/membership. And the third one is an asset token that people usually try to avoid because it's a little bit more complicated if it comes to securities. In particular, if you consider that securities have an impact also in other jurisdictions, if you want to sell your security in the US, you should be registered and so forth. The little bit unpleasant thing, I must say, is that FINMA considers a pre-sale, and that's what we want to do here. We want to sell a token, raise some funds, and build up our ecosystem or our service. A token as pre-sale is considered as a security. And that causes sometimes some confusion. I was not so sure about whether FINMA really understood this crypto projects back then when they invented it, because they said an utility token is only an utility token if you can use it the day you issue it. But why do we sell an utility token? Because we want to raise money and then build up the service. So that sometimes causes some problems, but it's solvable. And this is in a nutshell how it is structured.
Thank you. So raising funds, Sothy, that's one of your expertise and on top of mind of every startup. So what are the requirements for startups, especially in a Web3 space, to meet the requirements they need to meet for fundraising?
This is a great question. So the big difference for a Web3 to Web2 is that Web3 startups raised funds via token sale, right? So typically Web2 use traditional instruments, equity sale, loans. So in Web3, you need to make sure that you have a tokenomics in place, you have a light paper or white paper that is solid. You want to make sure that your tokens get the right classification, right? As Jürg said, there are 3 categories. So you make sure that you are fully compliant with that. And in the end, if you enter into a relationship with an investor, this is a contractual relationship. So you need to have an agreement in place. So for Web3, a SAFT, S-A-F-T, stands for Simple Agreement on Future Tokens. Because you're in an early stage, no product has been built, token has not been minted, but the investor will get your tokens afterwards. So in the SAFT, the terms and conditions between you and the investor are defined. When I say you, it's not meant you as an individual person, rather a legal entity that you need to set up to issue the tokens. So if you consider all these factors, you're in the pole position to raise funds. You're ready to pitch to investors.
Thank you. So why does a startup have to do that in Switzerland, fundraise here? And do you have any examples of successful fundraising or from Genius X, from the accelerator program?
Yes, so we ourselves are a Swiss-based company. Genius Yield, my other company, we raised funds last year, closed the seed round within 3 weeks only. I must admit, last year was better than this year. This year is deep crypto winter, but still, if you're building a solid project, you'll still be able to raise funds. But overall, thanks to FTX, the overall market environment is not that favorable. I shall say, I hope we are going to speak about that later, thanks to the Cardano network, there's a unique opportunity to raise funds on the blockchain. More later.
Okay, more later. So let's go to you, Aliya. So Sygnum Bank is one of the first, or the first, licensed crypto bank worldwide, based in Switzerland. Can you share a bit how you work with startups and how you build up the community around Sygnum?
Absolutely. So, as you said, Sygnum's central thesis from the very get-go has been to have regulation front and center. So we never executed a single transaction or took in a single client deposit until we definitely had the banking license from FINMA back in 2019. And since then, we've been sort of servicing the entire ecosystem, both on the non-crypto side, the people who wanted to engage with crypto and needed a sort of, and wanted to come in through a regulated doorway, and from the crypto side, where there was a lot of different projects who had raised a lot of money and now had requirements that also dripped over into the traditional space. So, they had to pay rent, they had to pay their contractors, and you can't manage your entire ecosystem from a MetaMask or a Daedalus wallet. You also need the rails into traditional finance, no matter what the future may hold, what the ideal of the future is. So at Sygnum, the central thesis has always been the future has heritage. And that means that while we walk towards this fantastic future finance, which will enable this decentralized control, everyone gets to control their own finances without centralized players and so on, there is still a journey there, and Sygnum supports you on that journey. So working in the Swiss ecosystem particularly, it's been really important to us to also work with startups around in the space to say, because when you initially start out, it's quite simple to sort of, it's two guys and a white paper, typically. And they can pretty much figure out their finances by themselves. But as your operation starts to grow, as it starts to scale a little bit, you'll kind of wish that you started out with a little bit more structure. And you're not going back and doing reverse reviews of how all the funds were spent or how you manage the finances, we're seeing this now with even the FTX reviews, right? So Sygnum then steps in actually quite early on and says, hey, start out with a regulated provider. Make sure that when you're fundraising, you're going through a regulated channel. And that sort of future-proofs you as you scale and grow.
Thank you. So yes, access to financial services is
so important.
Key. Yes. Yeah. So how does the ecosystem of banking offerings look like in Switzerland? And also, we don't want to only talk about Switzerland, also the world, so maybe also other jurisdictions. So what's your experience there?
I think there's quite almost like a Chinese wall between the American crypto ecosystem and the rest of the world, really. And I saw this also when I was visiting America, where all the ecosystem players are quite different from what you see, say, in Europe and in Asia, even South America and Africa. And so there are players that are servicing the ecosystem there. There are banks like Signature and Silvergate, and usually if you're based in America, that's who you work with. But if you're based outside of the US, typically your counterparty would be, a lot of people try to manage their own funds at the beginning, but there's Sygnum, there's of course Seba in Switzerland as well. And now you're starting to see many other traditional players also start to experiment a little bit. And it's, they've had their steering committees for the last 5 years, and now maybe they're starting to do some pilot projects. So in the future, we see that there will be it will be a much more colorful ecosystem. And fundamentally at Sygnum, we welcome that, because there's enough pie for everyone to share. There's not a competition per se. And bringing in more of these traditional players into the financial crypto ecosystem will only push the growth and mass adoption faster and further.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. All right. I jumped into the crypto space back in 2017. At that time, it was a real challenge to get a bank account open for even a fintech company, right? So now we're speaking about Web3 companies. But thanks to Sygnum, Seba, the other Swiss crypto bank, it's much more easier. So this is an experience that I can share with you. Nowadays, I think it's rather standard to open accounts. Sorry, Jürg.
Yes, it's still a bit a challenge, to be honest, for our clients, because we're servicing startup that just started, and sometimes you do not have the size that it's interesting for banks to offer you services from an economical perspective. But it's absolutely great that we have banks like Sygnum and Sirpa, super supportive. On the other hand, we have now fintech license companies who can cover the fiat part, because these our customers are doing super well with crypto. They fully understand it, but they're struggling with the fiat part. So it's very good to have this additional license where you have like a banking license light. You're very limited in maximum capital and services you can offer, but you can cover the fiat part for crypto as well. Therefore, we partner up with a fintech license company and try to cover the gap until they're big enough and interesting enough for you, and then we'll definitely forward it to Sygnum.
No, but sorry, just to follow on from what you were saying as well, I think there's been a lot of different players in the market. I mean, not specifically the ones that you're talking about, certainly, but a lot of different players that offer effectively banking services. And these might be out of jurisdictions, not Switzerland, but smaller jurisdictions that have much more lenient, let's say, processes around KYC and AML, and the regulatory oversight in these areas is also quite minimal. And that has sort of led to now, when you see the market action, the way it's played out, particularly over the last 2 weeks, with the implosion of FTX, and then the exposure that Genesis had, and then Gemini to Genesis, and it's always a bit of a daisy chain like this. And when, last year when we had this booming crypto market, I mean, we all looked at our CEO, Matthias Imbach, and said, why aren't we offering more cool products to the market? And we're so slow and we're so boring. But today we look at him and say, yeah, good call, good call. It was the right call to stay super regulated and to have FINMA be our watchdog the entire time. And we're seeing that also reflected in the market sentiment now, where a lot of the people who've been technically using a lot of these centralized exchanges as their counterparty have now started consolidating with Sygnum. And just in the last 2 weeks, we've seen more or less 350 million in inflows, just as people are trying to exit their centralized exchange positions and come to a counterparty that they can completely trust. So yeah, the regulatory question is it's a really important one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in particular, I think reputation becomes even more important. Of course, we can work with payment providers abroad. We have now one case on our table. They did some fundraising, 1.1 million. And the assets were pooled in Portugal on a bank. And then I tried to shift it to Switzerland. Why? I mean, Portugal is a great country and is not on any monitoring list or sanction or whatsoever. But they said, if you want to continue with our fundraising, we say, we're a Swiss company and we have a great white paper, we have a cool project, trust us, we're licensed, and please transfer your assets to a bank in somewhere else. It doesn't really create trust, doesn't
Absolutely.
it? Therefore,
absolutely.
we're happy that we can build up these services in Switzerland. I think the whole ecosystem should play a role in this and work together so that we can cover everything out of Switzerland.
100%. That's what Sothy was saying as well, right? Yeah. That the investors are already kind of like, you're based in Switzerland, great. You have a bank account with your name on it, an IBAN that's to your account in the same jurisdiction? Check. Like, these are all different factors that add credibility to a project, in addition to, of course, the tech that you're building, but all of these things also actually matter, particularly early stage.
Thank you. Yeah, especially in the last couple of weeks, I mean, we are in a bust and boom industry, knowing that it's definitely important. So let's move on now and let's talk about Cardano. We are at the Cardano Summit after all, and you want to talk more about Cardano, building on Cardano. So Switzerland could be particularly interesting for Cardano projects looking to launch their initial stake pool offerings, or ISPOs. Can you elaborate more on this and the advantages of launching this in Switzerland?
Sure. May I ask you guys, who has ever heard of an ISPO? Raise your hands, please. Wow, not bad. Very good. So for the others, ISPO stands for Initial Stake Pool Offering. This is unique to the Cardano blockchain. Especially in this horrible market situation, startups can still raise funds, right? So it's a kind of non-custodial public offering. So if you hold ADA and you see a project that you want to support, you can delegate your ADA to that pool. In return, you get their project tokens. And the projects get ADA. And the pool owner gets also rewarded in ADA. So it's a win-win situation. And those who have ADAs, they don't need to sell the ADA. It's just delegating, right? It's unlocked. That's the nice feature to another stake pool operator on another chain. So why doing this out of Switzerland? I mean, overall, it's we have learned that Switzerland is overall offering a very favorable environment, and ISPO is just part of a fundraising mechanism, right? So typically a startup raises the first funds with VCs in a private round, and then it launches an ISPO. It has also another benefit, because if you run an ISPO, you engage in your community. So you're making your community aware of your upcoming projects, right? And typically in the last fundraising round, it's another public round, mainly on launch pads. So that's the benefits of running an ISPO.
Thank you. So we heard now a lot about Switzerland, on the one hand being that stable location, stability, that word I heard a lot. At the other hand, it's also innovation, Switzerland pioneering and innovation, which are kind of two contradictory words, but both happen in Switzerland. So how do you see it playing out now with the FTX, recent FTX scandal? And can Switzerland be a regulatory safe haven? But at the same time, how can Switzerland continue to innovate? What do you think is going to happen there? That's a question to everybody.
Yeah,
who wants to start?
Might be a thin line. Exactly. So far, I think regulatory-wise, we're doing very well, in particular since we have this dual system. So reduced cases or smaller crypto cases can profit from an application with a self-regulatory organization, which is a very lean, fast, and pragmatic process. It takes a few months. It costs maybe 20,000, 25,000, and you're a regulated financial intermediary in Switzerland in the crypto space, profiting from infrastructure, authorities, and the reputation, which is amazing, actually. I was talking in South Korea, in Seoul, at the conference, and they really envy us for this system. And you're still able to do crypto exchanges, crypto fiat. You can issue payment token, you can offer custody, some payment services. Bitcoin.swiss, for instance, just has this level of regulation and can build up a unicorn with more than 300,000 employees. From that perspective, I think we do a really good job that we are fully regulated. And I mean, you come to Switzerland if you're ready to run a marathon. If you want to run a sprint, you might be better off in another jurisdiction. But here we're regulated, but we do it in the most pragmatic way, as long as there is no international pressure that will force us to change it. But this might be another discussion. But so far, I think we're on this thin line between promoting innovation and providing stability and being compliant. This is as I see it.
Thank you.
Maybe as like a follow-on to what you're saying, it also feeds to what Paola said before, that working with the regulators in Switzerland is an incredibly, let's say, collaborative process. So there's somebody at FINMA that we can always go to and say, hey, we're thinking about this new product. What do you guys think? And then they can give us feedback. They can say, hey, maybe you need to structure it in this way or consider these factors as well. And just being able to have that kind of relationship, having that kind of certainty at the outset when we're thinking about a new project, I mean, that is the core of where innovation can happen. In other jurisdictions, you're scared to innovate because you don't know what the regulator may say, or you come up with something and then have the regulator come after you, or like there's so many different ways that this can roll out. And I mean, I'm originally from India, and I could never imagine having this relationship with the regulators at home. But over here, like having these like quarterly check-ins, just being able to pick up the phone and say, hey, this is something that we're considering. Can we have a meeting next week or so? It's fantastic. And that's, I think, also one of the things that really sets Switzerland apart.
I will continue, yes. So we have pragmatic authorities, which is also tech agnostic. So this is great. We have brain power, which is also very important. If you want to set up your company here, we can find people for you, and curious students or just people that just jump into this and want to be part of it. We have corporate collaboration. So also big giants also are interested into jumping into this, understanding, and of course they go to the startups because they are the ones that know how this is working, because the other one is too big to understand or move in a more dynamic way. Then we have the legal certainty, which we have been listening. We have the authorities, and in general we have this blockchain savvy movement in Switzerland. And we also have this privacy culture, which also adds some, you know that we have a tradition on privacy in different sectors. And this also helps out for this. And just some key figures. Currently, I mean, on the latest count, we have 1,128 blockchain-related companies, which employ like around 6,002 people, 16 unicorns. So, and of course, 2 crypto banks. So I think these statistics for such a small country talk by themselves.
They call us unicorns.
But I mean, it's not for. It will not last for. I mean, we have to work on this and continue this, of course.
Yes.
Maybe to add some critical aspects to the conversation. It's not just given. There is international. But some jurisdictions are NYS. Some jurisdictions want to copy things. They're also making progress in regulation. There's going to be MiCA that we went through and have a certain assessment about it. So every day we have to work on it and use this potential of collaboration with authorities to teach them, educate them, help them to understand so that we can continue this pragmatic way that we have. Exactly.
We have to come to a close already, as I'm sure we could have continued talking about Switzerland, but a look in the future, we would sit here a year from now. What hot topics do you think would we discuss?
Yeah, I think next year we will be talking about scalability, the growth of DeFi, bring it in a more solid, stable way to the broader audience. I think this is going to be very important. Innovation in the Cardano system, guys, you remember Cardano releases the smart contract only last year, and since September you see a surge of dApps, and this is going to be to continue, and which is good. I'm not a trader, I'm a builder, so I'm here in the long term, so I'm quite optimistic. So yeah. Scalability, and you, Jürg, what would you say?
I hope we will talk about tokenized assets. The people out there, the investors might be a little bit fed up with investing in pots of hot air. Maybe they want to have real assets behind and an underlying. You already started tokenizing wine and tokenize it.
No, we have a Picasso painting, we have a Dali, we have a Warhol.
Art, yeah.
We have a lot of different art, yes.
Okay, good. I'll leave it up to you.
And some funds are coming as well.
But I think that we can make use of the technology because it's more efficient, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more secure, and not talk about any coins that we do not really are sure what their kind of purpose is behind.
Following on from that, right? I think, especially in the last couple of weeks, we really saw the implosion of these big centralized exchanges. So I think we'll see a lot more oversight on crypto players in general. But at Sygnum, we're also talking or thinking a lot about how we can use the underlying technology stack in a really powerful way, but combining it with some sort of regulatory oversight. So we're calling it CDFI, that is a name in progress, but we're seeing how we can bring the power of DeFi to centralized finance effectively. Because there's something you can still do without everything needing to be completely, let's say, anonymous or having some level of permissioned access where you have every participant KYC'd, you know who they are, and then you get to have some sort of regulatory oversight, even in a, even using the crypto infrastructure.
Thank you. So scalability, tokenized assets, oversight, Paola.
Well, I hope that we are discussing how the wild times are over, that we have been building trust, that the education has spread out on the community. I mean, it's beyond the blockchain community, but I mean to the regular population to enable the acceptance of this new world, and that we also don't have like a winner, the jurisdiction, this one is winner, the other one, but that we work together like synergies. We are trying also to push to work together with Singapore so we can speak the same language and create great things together. That would be.
Thank you. Those are excellent closing words. So, and as you said, Jürg, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I would agree with that. So thank you for joining. It was a pleasure hosting that session.
Thank you.